Hello. Ooh, gotta record the session. There we go. Hello and welcome to Business Lessons from the Military. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we are here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, and an hour in for Central and Mountain. I was just talking to someone in Central Time, so it's always fun to talk to a military colleague, that I don't know well and get to know him better. He's actually going to be a guest coming up on a show in a few weeks with his wife. So you can I'll tease you a little bit about it, just to leave it there. So today we are going to start on the next group, if you will, of Marine Corps warfighting doctrine, and really start going in deeper and deeper than we have before on how to apply military lessons to starting, growing, improving your business, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work for a company. I think these lessons are equally applicable. And so let's jump right in. And especially since this is based on the military, there has to be a PowerPoint. That's pretty much required. So, for those of you who are in the military, you know of what I speak. And here we go. Okay, so business lessons from the military. And as I typically mention, this is all by way of working within the three pillars of attainment. We are generally working here in the pursuits pillar within the finances realm, although the lessons do apply to other things, especially to relationships. And certainly as we get into our self, our identity, our mindset, I think you will find a lot of these apply. All right, so today we're going to talk about the conduct of war applied to business. That's why I say we're really going to get into some of the nitty-gritty here, get into some of the details, okay? And throughout Marine Corps warfighting doctrine, you will see this term maneuver warfare. I know I brought it up in past shows. Maneuver warfare really is the fundamental concept in how the Marine Corps looks at pursuing combat operations. Now, what's interesting is over the last certainly decade or two, business, I think, has evolved very much in a direction that's compatible with the ideas contained within maneuver warfare. And when I was preparing for the show earlier this morning, a thought occurred to me, and I want to bring this up because I think it'll help see why I feel there's such a strong connection between between military lessons and how they can be applied to business. So in America, we operate under a capitalistic system, and people will argue it's not pure capitalism. It's certainly not atavistic capitalism, that's for sure. But in general, we have our economic system is capitalism. And one of the features of capitalism that I think doesn't get talked about very often, perhaps because it sounds so negative, but is indeed in many ways one of the reasons why capitalism is, as Churchill called it, the worst economic system except for all the others, okay, is contained within capitalism is a sense of, I lost the phrase now, creative destruction, okay? So capitalism is in a constant process of destroying in order to create something new. Okay, so let's take a famous example, going back over 100 years ago now, 120 years ago or so. The automobile had been invented, but it was not a widely adopted technology, if you will, right? There was people still got around on horses. They still had horse-drawn vehicles. And there was still a thriving industry in buggy whips, which were whips that you would sit in your buggy and you'd whip the horse to get it to go faster. And makers of buggy whips, they sort of just sloughed off the idea of the automobile. It was noisy, it was unreliable, it scared horses, they hated it. The roads, roads were not compatible with automobiles. You can come up with all the explanations you want as to how someone could convince himself that the automobile was just a flash in the pan, it was never going to last, compared to the horse, which had been the mode of human transportation at that point for literally millennia, right? And where are all the buggy whip manufacturers today? They're all gone. They got put out of business over probably about a 20-year period, during which time the automobile went from a nascent technology to being widely adopted, in part because Henry Ford came along and he figured out a way to make an automobile that could be that people who worked for making the automobiles could afford to buy, right? And so it became a consumer product, and it just basically wiped out horses as a means of transportation. That's the reality. So it destroyed the buggy whip manufacturing business, but it opened up the manufacturing of automobiles, and far more people were employed manufacturing automobiles. It necessitated a much larger number of skilled people to design the automobiles, to run the factories, to make the cars. And as much as we hear about the how awful it was working on these assembly lines, and yet I'm not sure that assembly line work was any less boring or more boring, I should say, than farm labor and things like that. So setting those issues aside, which are probably better discussed over a glass of bourbon or rye, the reality is what the automobile industry created was such a leap forward for economics, for societal growth, etc. So in the midst of the destruction wrought by capitalism of things like the buggy whip business and blacksmiths who had to shoe horses and all that kind of stuff, farriers, a new technology came, and now we're starting to see as electric cars become more common, and they're talking about hydrogen powered cars and all these other things, we're starting to see the next evolution of transportation technology. And while it may not happen as fast as the conversion from horses to cars, still it's little by little probably going to destroy the automobile business as we know it today, or certainly as we knew it 20, 30 years ago, where the internal combustion engine was the technology. I mean, there really wasn't any other way to power a car. Now there's electrical, there's natural gas, there's all these other things. So contained within that creative destruction that's a part of capitalism is the need for maneuver warfare, or the ideas contained within maneuver warfare, which is probably more to the point. Okay. And we hear about, there's this term you hear in business a lot, disruption, right? So disruption, I would argue, is creative destruction taken to the next level. And maneuver warfare, or the principles of maneuver warfare, let's speak it that way, are really the principles that allow disruption to happen. Okay, so let's get into these now and see why that's the case. Okay, so when we think about maneuver, oftentimes what we think about is sort of maneuvering on the ground, or maybe maneuvering in the air, like an airplane maneuvering or a ship maneuvering, sort of what you might call spatial maneuver. And certainly that is, from a warfighting standpoint, that is one aspect of maneuver. Where Marine Corps doctrine really is looking, though, is beyond that very narrow concept of maneuver. And they're applying it to psychological maneuver, technological maneuver, as well as temporal issues like spatial maneuver. Okay, so we want to be agile. We want to apply maneuver to every single part of our business. Okay, so we want to have maneuver in finances. We want to have maneuver in marketing. We want to have maneuver in product development and service development. We want to constantly be looking on how to move within those various realms in the overall space of business. Okay, and we also want to be thinking, how do we develop maneuver as a psychological concept? How do we build that in instead of thinking linearly? How do we get our new product, new service people thinking on a maneuver basis? How do we get our finance people thinking on a maneuver basis? Okay, because that's where we can, we can disrupt and make leaps toward our goals and toward wherever business is going to go in the future. Okay, so the thing about maneuver, whether it's psychological, whether it's technological, is number one, it's rapid, and number two, it's focused. Okay, we cannot be rapid and dispersed at the same time. All that's doing is more quickly depleting all of our energy, whether it's physical energy, mental energy, spiritual energy, doesn't matter. Dispersed rapidity is just making it diminish more quickly. Okay, so we need to be focused in our rapid movements. Okay, and that, if you'll go back, I talked about focus in general, and it really means like being very targeted. Where are we going to put our energies with respect to finances? Where are we going to put our energies with respect to marketing? Okay, and this is where I think businesses get off base, is they set all these sort of grandiose goals or whatever, and brand awareness and all this kind of no. What we want to do is get down really, what are the fundamental issues within our business that we can work on? And one of them is we want to play to our strengths. Okay, we want to the extent we can, avoid having to deal with our weaknesses and play to our strengths. And the way we deal with our weaknesses is we get someone else on our team who's strong in that area where we're not. Okay, that's how you deal with weaknesses for the most part. Okay, so we want to move rapidly, and we want to be very, very focused. And again, in all areas of our business, sales, marketing, new product and services development, and how we're doing our financing. Now, by the way, in things like financing and certainly in accountancy, okay, we don't want to be breaking the rules, of course. And in fact, we don't want to be ever breaking the rules. We don't want to break the bounds of moral business conduct, of ethical marketing, that sort of thing. Okay, so I'm not saying we want to be so rapid and focused that we're breaking through any sort of norm and anything goes. Quite to the contrary, we want to recognize those boundaries and work in a rapid, focused way within them, so that we're leaping forward, but we're not leaping outside the boundaries and doing something that may be illegal or immoral that then is going to potentially put us out of the game. And that's where I think when we talk about disrupting, I think people get too wrapped. They want to disrupt everything. No, we want to be ethical, honest business people. Okay, we just want to look for opportunities to really drive our businesses forward. Okay, and we want to bypass to penetrate. Okay, if we see some kind of looming hurdle coming up, we don't necessarily have to just batter, BATTER, at that hurdle until we get through it. The best way to deal with that hurdle may be, can we just go around it? Can we avoid it? Can we go over it? Can we tunnel under it? Okay. Or can we sort of take it at a glancing blow and not have to deal with it a whole lot in order to just get around it more easily, more efficiently? Okay. So let's take an example. Okay. Let's say that let me come up with one here real quickly. Okay. So let's say that, and we're in times like this, right? There's a lot of economic uncertainty that we're dealing with. What does that mean in terms of what's going to happen to our businesses? Are we going to get more sales? Are sales going to get contracted? Are we going to hit a recession? Are we not going to hit a recession? Stock market going to go up, not going to go up? All of those are potential hurdles that we have to deal with. Okay, so one of the ways to penetrate those hurdles would be to avoid them. Okay, so rather than waiting for the recession to get here, maybe we want to take a look at streamlining our businesses now. Okay, and it may mean laying some people off. You say, well, if I lay people off, that's going to make a recession more likely. Perhaps, okay, but if you hang on to people, okay, and then we do hit recession and you have to let them go, and now all of a sudden employment isn't as strong as it is now, is that better for the people that are not essential to the operations of your business? I would think no. Right now, the employment market is very tight, and so someone can find a new job much more easily than they can if we're actually in a recession. Okay, and indeed, you may be able to be in a situation where you can give people more time so that they can job search while also keeping the job with you, but they've got maybe 2 months to transition or something like that. Okay, so rather than dealing with that hurdle farther down the line where you're going to have to sort of batter through it and deal with all of the stress and anxiety of having to let people go, and then they're upset because the job market isn't good, and gosh, I wish you had let me know about this 6 months ago, whatever, is look at your workforce now. Optimize your workforce. If you have people on the payroll who really aren't necessary, or the work they do is not necessary, it's not part of the rapid, focused effort that you need to make, then start working with those people either to transition them into a more crucial role in your organization, or finding somewhere else to go where they'll have greater job security than you can currently offer them. Okay, that's a way to bypass a future hurdle. Okay, now, and that plays into the next thing: seize the initiative. Okay, don't sit around waiting to respond to what the competition is doing, to respond to what the market is, but may throw at you. Okay, do we really want to wait until we're in a recession to deal with being in a recession? Or would it be better to, I like this word I used a minute ago, optimize our businesses now, or at least make plans for how we're going to deal with a recession? Or maybe it's mild, maybe it's harsh, maybe have a couple of different options on what we do. Take the initiative now, make those plans, have those discussions, talk to your people. Okay, maybe there's some people who are working for you, they're really not particularly happy in their work, and they would be happier somewhere else. Okay, and maybe they're hanging in there because they feel a loyalty to you, you're a great employer, and they feel like, the labor market is so tight right now, I don't feel like in good conscience I can leave and leave you in the lurch. Say, hey, you know what? I'm trying to figure out how we're going to deal with all of this. And if you're not happy here, then let's work together on a plan where you can find somewhere to go happy, where you can be happier. You can go somewhere where you'll be happier, and you'll be better off, and I'll be able to shrink my workforce, but without a lot of hard feelings on people, because people are able to go on to something that's even better than what they were doing here. So seize the initiative, okay, and talk to people. So, well, I don't want to stir up uncertainty. If you think that people aren't feeling uncertainty, honestly, you're probably kidding yourself a little bit. I think most people are feeling pretty uncertain right now. I think it's better to put them on the table instead of letting it be the elephant in the room, right? Just put it on the table and say, and be honest. Let's say, I don't know where this is going to lead, but I would like to get your input. What do you see ahead? How do you see your situation? Are you liking your work here? Are you not liking your work here? Do you feel what you're doing is making a meaningful contribution? And just ask people a lot of questions and figure it out. Seize the initiative, okay? Now, the key thing, and this is why I'm dealing with this last, is in order to operate successfully in maneuver warfare, you have to be able to cope with uncertainty. And the most successful people in business today are the ones who have the strongest stomach for uncertainty. Okay, I brought up this example before because I just think it's such a great show and movie. How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, right? And there's the famous song about the guy, he only does it the company way. He doesn't want any change. He doesn't want to take any risk. Okay, that sort of employee today is really kidding himself. That is not the business environment of the 50s, where you go to work for a company and 30 years later you retire and you get a defined benefit pension and a gold watch. Those days are over, okay? The nature of business is uncertainty today. And to be successful in business, we have to consistently be working to be able to better cope with uncertainty. Okay? And one of the ways we can help our people do that is by talking to them about the uncertainty in the business, getting their input, and explaining to them, look, I'm not trying to make you feel anxious or stressed out. We are in a more than usual time of uncertainty in the economy and business. And rather than deal with this on my own and then end up surprising you with things that I've come up with, I want us to share in this so together we can better cope with whatever the future may hold for us, whether it's continuing as a team, whether it means some of us have to leave. I don't know the answer to that right now. What I do know is we have to confront the uncertainty in order to deal with it. And we're stronger doing that as a team. Okay, I've used this example often enough as well, because I think it's so pertinent to the business world, and especially when we have younger employees who want to feel that they are an important part of the organizations for which they're working. You take a submarine, in particular, an attack submarine. There's about 110, 120 crew members on that submarine, and everyone from the most junior to the captain of the boat is expected and welcomed to share ideas on how to run that boat better, how to make it a more effective tool of whatever it's doing, gathering intelligence, being a deterrent to a particular action that an enemy might take, etc. Okay, and in fact, well, you won't have a seaman apprentice on a submarine, but a seaman or a petty officer third class On a submarine, will think nothing of saying, hey, skipper, do you have a minute? I had an idea that I want to share with you. And unless that skipper is not a good one, he's going to say, absolutely, shipmate, or hey, shipmate, I got something to do right now. Let's get together in whatever, an hour, 30 minutes. Let's get together, in 3 hours, and let's go over this thing, or let's or I can't do it today, but grab the XO and talk to him about it, or whatever. He's not going to let that idea just drop for two reasons. One is it may be a great idea that will make his boat run better, and he needs that. And two, he doesn't want to teach that junior crew member that what he thinks is not worthwhile. To the contrary, he wants that junior crew member to understand your ideas are valuable. You're a valuable member of this crew, and we're going to listen to your ideas. Whether we implement them or not, that's a separate issue. But we're going to listen to them. We may debate them. We may try them, or we may not try them right now, but we may try them later, or we may reject them. But we're going to give you a hearing, because even if this idea isn't a good idea, or it's an idea we don't adopt, the next one you come up with could be, and it could be an unbelievably good idea that is going to really raise the efficiency of the operations of this boat. The same is true in our businesses. And that's I think we think of it as being, well, maybe in marketing that's the case, because there's all this social media marketing and all this new stuff that, like me, this stuff didn't even exist when I started in business. Okay. Not just there. In product development, in sales, in every part of the business, young people can have ideas, because if for no other reason, then they're not so invested and I guess invested is the best word, in how things have always been done. So they have a different perspective than, old guys like me can bring to a business, and they bring a fresh outlook. And that can be very valuable. They also may be involved in kinds of things that we're not involved with, like video games. Okay, I used to poo-poo video games, honestly. But what I found is there were many great lessons that can come out of video games, and that can be applied to business, and they're worth listening to. They're worth considering. Okay, so we're almost up on time here. So I encourage you to, wrestle with these ideas, think about them. How can they be applied to the business, to your business or the business for which you work, and really give that some thought. Even if it's only in one little way you use it, test it out, see if it works for you. I think you'll find that it will. I can tell you, this is how these are the principles I'm applying to my own business as I, rebuild. Okay. And it's going to be trial and error. By the way, unfortunately, that is true in combat as well. We might like to think, okay, we build this combat plan and we execute it, and nobody gets killed, and it goes off. And no, it's like von Moltke said, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Okay, but we still need the plan. We still need to follow our principles, and then be able to maneuver, adjust, be rapid and focused, bypass to penetrate, seize the initiative, and continually increase our ability to cope with uncertainty in order to really make our businesses successful. So that's what I have today. I want to thank you for joining me. And tomorrow is my show, People Making Money, at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to go ahead and stop the sharing here. And I'll tell you what the topic is for tomorrow. Oh, yes. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about, give you a comprehensive list of issues to deal with if you're negotiating for a job. And or if you need to hire people, these are the issues that you want to be prepared to address to them in order to make sure that you're offering them the most enticing package that you can. We're in a tight labor market these days, and we really need to be looking more, giving a harder look at how we work with our people. Okay, so we're going to do a very deep dive into that tomorrow. That's People Making Money, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Go to my Eventbrite page. I'm going to start putting a link to the Eventbrite page in the show notes. Go to my YouTube channel, look at past episodes of the show, and that way you can see what it's about. You can join us live streaming online, or you can join the meeting live using the Eventbrite link. And then next week, starting on Monday, is Trusts and Estates Weekly. That's a show dedicated to that somewhat narrow part of the business world. So it's an opportunity to figure out how you can enhance your business by working in that arena. And then a week from today, we'll be back here for Business Lessons from the Military, continuing on with our discussion of the theory of war applied to business. So thanks again for joining me today. I appreciate it very much. Wishing you a wonderful rest of the day, and signing off. Marie, darling, you are my bell and inspiration.